Good evening, and welcome to a special agenda for the Zoning Board of Appeals in Plymouth, Massachusetts, America's hometown. This is a special meeting. It's not a regularly scheduled meeting. And I do have one announcement to make. Because of the holiday, the TV station is to, I will read the part that's important to reiterate. The meeting will be recorded only as the station is closed on 11/10. We do have a staffer on standby to make sure that John is okay with anything that goes, anything that's needed. So this is being recorded, but it's not being televised because, and it's nothing to do with us. We never have those decisions. That's made by PAC TV, and they're closed tonight, so they're recording it. And I don't know when it will be offered to the public, but it will be offered to the public. And you'll have to contact PAC TV to find out about that. Now, moving along, we have read the legal ad into the record and already seated people. And I have asked the attorney, our attorney, to again explain exactly what this hearing is about, what our responsibilities are, and what we cannot do. And it's confusing, but I will ask Attorney Murray, will you please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Carolyn Murray from KP Law is your special counsel on this. As you know, tonight this is the continued hearing of a 40B relative to really two different sites, but everything is being heard as a single hearing, as you see up there on the screen, for Ocean View North and Sandry Drive, for a total of 163 units of affordable homes. 25% of which would actually be dedicated as, deed restricted as affordable units. We opened the public hearing on this on September 29th, and we had a general overview that evening. We were to continue it until October 20th, but the intent of the October 20th hearing was to start to hear traffic as well as peer review on behalf of the board on traffic, as well as civil and stormwater engineering issues. Since that deadline could not be satisfied from all of the peer review perspective, we've continued that hearing to this evening. So I expect tonight you're going to hear about traffic and stormwater and civil engineering matters. I don't expect that we are going to conclude the conversation on those topics for this evening, because as you see in your packet, as late as last, I think, November 3rd and November 6th, we were still getting peer review reports in from Apex, which is the board's peer reviewer looking at wastewater, civil engineering, traffic, et cetera, for this project. So I expect there's going to have to be one more back and forth with the applicant at least as to those two topics. As a reminder to everybody, this is under Chapter 40B. So that means that zoning and all local rules, regulations, or practices can be overridden. That doesn't mean they will be overridden, but they can be, subject to a decision that this board will ultimately make on the projects. So this board's in the unique position that normally you would only look at things from, say, a special permit and strictly a zoning bylaw perspective. But here tonight, you're also looking at things that may be considered by the Conservation Commission, the DPW, the Health Department, Fire Department, et cetera. And you've received feedback since your last hearing from all of those departments, providing you with some comments with respect to the project itself. You have 180 days from when we opened the hearing to actually conclude the hearing, so we've still got plenty of time for a few more hearings on this before the board ultimately will be asked to make a decision on the waivers, as well as whether or not you're going to approve or disapprove this particular project. Now, unlike other things that you typically consider in zoning, whether it's variances or special permits, it's a different standard for a 40B. This is not about proving hardship. This is not about conditions owing to shape, soil, and topography. This is not about applying special permit conditions. Instead, it's about looking at what are your local bylaws and local requirements. Do they create a matter of a local concern that has to have something rooted in public health and safety? That might give rise to whether or not the board feels that granting this project would be contrary to those local concerns, or whether or not you think the need for affordable housing would outweigh some of those local concerns, such that you would see your way clear to approving these projects. And I would just remind the board, it is just a majority vote, not a supermajority as you might be used to in other applications.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, I would ask who at Pulte is going to present this evening? Please. Yes. But before we get started, I would just like to mention one thing. If, in the event that there's another meeting scheduled and it's just even for a continuance, please have somebody here, because look at everybody that showed up. And they deserved an explanation, and there could have probably been some preliminary questions asked at that last meeting that would have given you a chance to prepare a little bit better. So please, try and make an effort to cover every single one of these meetings. Go ahead. Is your microphone on? Is the green light on?
It should be now.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Again, just as a preface, we absolutely will adhere and take that into consideration. And I apologize if there had been any miscommunication. When we had requested to continue because of the kind of the delay in the peer review process, I thought that the offer had been out there that if the board had wanted a representative or representatives to appear, we would have. So apologize for any miscommunication on that, and that will not happen again.
Okay. I think the miscommunication was because our attorney comes from a long way off and wasn't needed here that night. We told her she didn't have to be here, but it's pretty common that you should. But, okay, let's move on.
We hear the message, and again,
Thank
it will
you
not
very
happen
much.
again. So, with that said, I, again, would like to reintroduce myself to the board and members of the public. Stephanie Kiefer from the law firm of Smolik and Vaughn in North Andover, and we are the attorneys for Pulte Homes of New England, and more specifically, the applicants of the two related projects, Ocean View North LLC and Sandview Drive Plymouth LLC. This evening with me, we have some people that you met at the last public hearing. Essex Petrie, Senior Manager with Pulte, as well as Pete Ellison from TEC Engineering. And because we are going to be delving into the traffic, we have our traffic engineer, Bob Michaud from MDM Transportation. So as had been reflected, the last time we were before the board was at that September 29th, where we provided the overview of the project. So since that time, we feel that some good progress has been made relative to, we've received peer review from the board's peer reviewer, both its traffic peer reviewer at Apex as well as its civil and stormwater peer reviewer engineers at Apex. And it was around, I think, mid-October that we received the traffic peer review. On October 24th, MDM Transportation provided the additional information to the peer reviewer. And then on November 3rd, I believe, Apex's traffic peer reviewer reviewed that, and we think that it primarily closed out the majority of the issues. There may be one or or 2 or 3 that may be there. However, I will let MDM address that in their presentation. Likewise, since the last hearing in late October and then again beginning of November, our civil engineers at TEC and Weston and Sampson provided written responses to the Apex and the town comment peer review regarding civil and stormwater. And then last week, I believe last Wednesday, and then again on Friday, Apex responded first for the Ocean View North site and then second for the Sandry Drive. Again, we think good progress has been made. I'm going to let Pete walk you through that. A number of comments have been closed out, but there are also a number of comments that remain open. And so we anticipate that for this evening's presentation, we would like, if you please, to first do our traffic, have that complete presentation, and then from there move to civil engineering and have TEC, have Pete give you kind of what has transpired since the last hearing. There's been some adjustments to the plans in response to what we heard both from the board and from the community at the last public hearing, so we'd like to share that with you. Then from there, take any questions or comments that the board may have, or the public. And then ideally, again, subject to your scheduling, we would like to come back at the board's next hearing on December 1st. And as Carolyn suggested, if we need to do wrap-up of civil stormwater, and, you know, ideally that would be limited, and then we could also move on there and do landscaping, architecture type issues before the board. But again, I don't want to get ahead of myself. We look forward to presenting to the board tonight, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to our traffic engineer.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members. For the record, my name is Robert Michaud. I'm the managing principal of MDM Transportation Consultants. We're based in Marlborough, Massachusetts. I'd like to provide a high-level overview of the traffic study that we've prepared for both sites. The project's combined impacts were evaluated, although the individual reports were issued for each of the sites, Ocean View North and Sandry Drive. Those, as council has mentioned, were both subject to peer review, and we were pleased to receive a letter dated to November 3rd from Apex, essentially acknowledging and closing out all but one particular issue, which is a fairly minor issue that relates to, and I'll speak to this in a moment, the design of the Court Street and Cherry Street intersection. So with that, if someone could, oh, I can click forward? Wonderful. So the projects, as I mentioned earlier, really comprise two separate sites. The Sandry Drive site, which is off of Hedge Road, adjacent to Sandry Drive, is located in this diagram to the north. And just below that, off of Prince Street, adjacent to the intersection as well of Court and Cherry and Prince Street, are the Ocean View North parcels, right? It's an irregularly shaped parcel that really contains two separate buildings on it. The unit totals here are Sandry Drive North, I believe, is 63 units, if I'm not mistaken. And the Ocean View North is a total of approximately 100 units in total. So I'm not going to get into the building design. I'm going to skip right over to this diagram, which shows the relationship of those parcels to some of the intersections that we've evaluated. They include what we would call the gateway intersections, at the locations that would be most impacted by vehicles that would be traveling to or from each of these parcels. So Court Street and Hedge Road, for instance, would be the principally impacted location for the Sandry Drive residence location. And then we've got the Ocean View North parcels, which serve as a gateway through the signalized intersection at Court Street and Cherry Street at Prince Street. These sites sit very well positioned relative to the bike trail, the rail system, which connects both properties. And you'll see that there's a fairly well-integrated system of sidewalks, and there is public transportation opportunity as well along Court Street, all accounted for in the traffic report. From a traffic impact perspective, I mentioned this earlier, we're looking at these as individual sites, but we do account for the cumulative or combined impact of all of those units. We apply industry standard trip rates to understand how much traffic they might generate during a traditional commuter period in the morning and again at night and over the course of a typical day. So here's an example of trip activity, in this case Ocean View North, which is 100 units. We expect for those 100 units to generate less than 40 total vehicle trips during commuter hours, and over the course of a day, 400. In our presentation of this,
Please.
in our presentation of this material to the Board of Selectmen, and in our decades of experience working with projects just like this, we have the opportunity to actually look at built projects, operating projects, projects that today have traffic coming and going that are just like this. We've inventoried and documented those sites. These trip estimates that are shown here are highly consistent with known operational sites in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Although we're using industry standard trip rates to estimate these levels, we can point to a number of different facilities, as we've done with the Board of Selectmen. If folks want to visit them and actually look at how they perform, this is how they perform. They're generating fewer than 40 vehicle trips per hour, not in the entirety. I'm talking about peak hours, and over the course of a day, just over 400 total vehicle trips. So these are well documented. Nationally, they're well documented. Locally, we've got decades of experience building, analyzing these types of projects. So these are accurate numbers that were also subject to peer review and concurrence by your peer reviewers being representative of what was likely to happen. If we look at the smaller project, the Sandry Drive project at 63 units, because it's a smaller project, it's 63 units, of course, it will generate less traffic than Ocean View at about 23 to 25 total vehicle trips per hour during commuter hours and just under 300 vehicles over the course of an entire day. If you were to look at a snapshot in time and take those combined number of vehicles and distribute them on the roadways, depending on where they're going to, where their place of employment would be, they're fairly well distributed north, south, and west of these properties. What's presented here is a very skeletal view, if you will, a schematic of the roadways that I mentioned earlier in a slide that include the Court Street corridor, which runs from page bottom to top, Hedge Road, which is at the top of this diagram, Prince Street and Cherry Street at the bottom, and you'll see gold arrows. These gold arrows represent a snapshot in time of the number of additional vehicle trips that would be generated by a combination of these projects. So if you look at the intersection of Hedge Road at Court Street to the north, the combined effect would be an increase of about 21 total vehicle trips per hour over the course of an hour. That's about one vehicle every 3 minutes. Likewise, on Cherry Street, just over 22 per hour. And to the south, 17 per hour, about one vehicle every 4 minutes. If we will look at the weekday evening peak hour, again, the same snapshot in time, the numbers overall look very similar, between 21 and 22 vehicle trips, depending on where you are on the roadway network. The distribution of these is a little bit different in that the vast majority of these trips would actually be traveling back to the development as opposed to leaving the development in the morning. Right? So the patterns are a little bit different, but the overall effect of these is the same. About one new vehicle trip being generated every few minutes on area roadways, depending on where you are. From an operating perspective, we've conducted a detailed analysis, not only of what we've observed today, but what we expect would occur independent of this project 7 years from now to account for normal area growth, other area projects, and then finally adding those trips that I just mentioned earlier to that future year condition to estimate what we would call build condition volumes and the associated analysis of those volumes. The results of that is shown simply in this diagram. for existing, future no-build, and build conditions in letter grade format. And what these letter grades relate to is the amount of average delay that a motorist would sustain at any one of the particular locations that we studied. In an urban or even suburban environment, like the intersections that we're looking at here, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Mass DOT, and transportation planners and engineers consider the delays that relate to a level of service D or better to be acceptable. Those are well documented in the Commonwealth. And you'll see, depending on which intersection you look at, either Cs or Ds, and in some cases, level of service B operations. The driveways themselves work with very little, if any, delay at level of service A. So what this shows is that if you look at today's condition, 7 years from now, with or without the project, there's literally no difference in the amount of delay that any one of those locations would sustain as a result of the development of these combined projects. That has been subject to peer review with concurrence from the peer reviewer that that analysis is representing a reasonable, defensible outcome, that this was done in accordance with good industry practices, and that the additional delays that this project, this combination of units would bring here is de minimis. It would not change the dial. It would not be a material consequence or additional delay to the area. We are well aware that the town has initiatives to improve one of the intersections at Court, Cherry, and Prince Street. It has been designed, and we understand is going to be going out to bid, perhaps even this fall. And what it entails is a widening and a geometric improvement of the intersection at Court, Cherry, and Prince to allow for an exclusive southbound left turn lane. That lane, this isn't very bright here, but this left turn lane right here is really what's being added in this example. And that has a pretty significant benefit in that, unlike today's condition where if you want to make left, you're kind of fighting the through traffic and you can actually back up traffic behind you, the addition of that lane allows for the unfettered movement onto Prince Street that then allows for a much more efficient flow of traffic traveling southbound through the intersection compared to today's condition. This also greatly enhances the pedestrian environment at the intersection. These improvements were actually funded as an outcome of the CVS development through its funding commitments to the town, and the town has then applied those funding commitments to advance and complete the design as you're seeing on the screen tonight. This is a table of the analysis results of that particular intersection. This was the remaining comment that we had received from peer review. What it related to is whether or not that improved condition, which does have a pedestrian phase associated with it, would be sensitive to the number of times that pedestrian call was placed. So we've done what we call a sensitivity analysis to understand if the signal were activated for pedestrian crossing as frequently as every other cycle of the signal, which we think is highly unlikely, that it would really have no material consequence on the amount of delay that occurs at the intersection relative to what we've documented in our traffic report and what we've submitted to the peer reviewer for the commentary. So essentially what this is showing is that during peak hours, under future 7-year horizon build conditions with both projects built, that signalized intersection with those improvements will operate at level of service C or better during a peak hour in the morning, and a B or a C operation in the evening. And you'll see that whether you have fewer or more pedestrian calls, those letter grade designations essentially don't change or change only very slightly. So for instance, in the, jumped ahead. In the evening peak hour, level of service B conditions become a C condition with 4 seconds of additional delay if you have pedestrian calls placed every other cycle. So ample capacity, little if any impact from the combination of these two projects. We did have extensive discussion with police, fire, public works, and planning on improvements that could be made and effected at the Hedge Road and Court Street intersection That intersection today serves as the gateway to the fire station, as the board is well aware. The importance of providing certain controls was discussed to facilitate a response that the fire department might need to make, not necessarily to these properties, but to the community generally. It is challenging on occasion for the fire trucks to get onto Court Street. And what we've developed is a mitigation strategy that would place an overhead-mounted signal system at that intersection, along with pavement markings and a controlled, if you will, preempted ability for the fire station to activate that signal when there was a call placed. What that would do is stop traffic on Court Street and allow traffic on Hedge Road, which is where the fire station is, to proceed uninterrupted. That's an improvement that's required today. It makes sense, it's prudent, and this developer has committed to implementing this improvement as an outcome of that discussion with police and fire. Finally, transportation demand management is a component of what we've submitted and has been reviewed with concurrence from the peer reviewer. There will be initiatives to promote public transportation that exists in the area, locating where the stops are, schedules for those services. Electric vehicle charging stations will be placed within each of the properties to promote non-fossil fuel generating uses. Greatly enhanced pedestrian infrastructure. As I mentioned earlier, there's a direct relationship between these properties and the rail trail that exists. That will be specific connections made from each of these to that rail trail. There'll be secure covered bike parking and ample parking to support the use. So in conclusion, we've had what we believe to be a very thorough peer review process on these projects. These are not high-impact traffic projects. There are community benefits, I mentioned at Hedge and Court, that will facilitate emergency response, and glad to answer any specific questions the board might have. I think in the effort to try to get all of the information out before public comment or board comment, I think I'll hand it to Pete, and he can walk through some of the civil issues.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Your name, please.
Good evening. My name is Peter Ellison. I'm a civil engineer with TEC. And what I'd like to do is walk the board through some of the updates to the overall site plan, specifically to the parking and drive aisles at the site, and then go through some changes to Building 2, the entrance to Building 2, and finally to Sandry Drive. Starting here, there was some questions from the board and the public related to the layout of the parking garages. It's important to note that the footprint of all three of these buildings is the same. So the garage layout that you see being projected here tonight is the same for all three buildings. There's 52 total parking spaces in each of the garages. As you pull into the garage, on the right-hand side, there are 21 single parking spaces on the right. And then on the left side of the garage, there are 31 total spaces. 3 of those are single, which are over in the bottom left corner. And then 28 of those parking spaces are tandem parking. So you'd be able to fit 2 vehicles from front to back in each one of those rows, as noted. I think on the previous plan that we had submitted, there were some questions about the boxes in the center drive aisle. Those are floor drains. It's just to collect any water that falls off the cars if they pull into the garage during a rainstorm, essentially. So again, 52 total parking spaces in each one of the garages. And it was important for us to note the drive aisle in the garage is 26 feet wide, so that exceeds the town of Plymouth's zoning bylaw for a drive aisle width, which is 25 feet. Each of these parking spaces is 9 feet wide and 18 feet in depth. And there's a reason why we were not able to accommodate the board's request to move these to 10 feet wide. And that is because there's 27 feet total between the structural columns that come down into the garage. So basically, you can fit 3 9-foot wide parking spaces in between each one of those columns. And we have, as I'll get into in a moment here, provided 10-foot wide parking spaces for all of the parking that are exterior to the garage. So we have increased those spaces. This slide just provides some representative photos of what the parking garages look like. Picture number 1 would be the garage door entry and exit as you pull into the garage. Number 2 is kind of looking down the central drive aisle. Again, that's 26 feet in width, which exceeds the town of Plymouth zoning bylaw. 3 is kind of looking at a standard single 9x18 parking stall. And then picture 4 is, again, down the drive aisle toward the back of the garage. You have the single parking lane on your right, tandem over to the left, and the doors you see on the left would be into the elevator lobby. So here we have the site plan, colored site plan for Ocean View North. So I'd like to just give a general update to some of the plan changes that have occurred at each of the buildings. Starting with Building 1, like I mentioned, we have, Building 1, I should say, accessed off of Court Street for anyone in attendance. We have increased the parking space dimensions for any of the parking that's exterior to the garage. So those are all now 10 feet wide by 18 feet in depth. And all of the drive aisles that are two-way drive aisles are 25 feet in width. The one-way access aisle behind the building is 20 feet wide, which meets the minimum width requirement for one-way and for fire access. So that's kind of an update for Building 1. Overall, we are providing 92 total parking spaces for Building 1. That's 52 garage spaces and 40 surface parking spaces. And that provides a parking ratio of 1.84 spaces per unit for Building 1. For Building 2, accessed off of Prince Street, this site has seen some more substantial changes to the layout. I think the most substantial change to the Prince Street Building number 2 is the driveway entrance to get into Building 2. If you look at the end of Prince Street today, it's currently a dead-end street.
Excuse me. Folks, your voices are being picked up by the recording, and it really makes it hard for him to explain things. So if you would, please. Thank you. I'm
Of course.
sorry.
Nope, no worries. So the previous version of the plan, the entrance into Building 2 was more of a 90-degree angle. You'd have to kind of come to a stop and take a hard left into the site. We've revised that to provide more of a curved entrance, which also at the same time eliminates the dead-end aspect of Prince Street, which we think is beneficial for anyone who's been down to the end of Prince, or has never been down to the end of Prince Street and might get confused about there being a dead end there. Yep, of course, sorry about that. Some other benefits to the change to the entrance into Building 2. It also eliminates headlight glare that was brought up by some of the members of the public at the last meeting, specifically to 35 Prince Street, which is directly across from where the driveway was previously. By creating this curved entrance, we're able to kind of create additional buffering where we could put like a green landscape buffer between the curved entrance to Building 2 and the adjacent homes. So we thought that was a good benefit. Additionally, the stormwater layout for Building 2 has changed quite a bit. There was previously a detention basin proposed to the west of the parking lot, the surface parking lot. That basin has been eliminated from the plan. which actually allows us to preserve approximately about 50 to 60 feet of additional natural buffer, which is currently wooded. So there would be an additional 50 or 60 feet of mature trees between the edge of the development and the existing homes over on Cordage Street, which we think is a good benefit. Overall, the same changes to parking, so the increased surface spaces to 10 feet in width and the drive aisles to 25 feet in width has been incorporated into Building 2. Overall, 92 parking spaces are provided, 40 at the surface and 52 in the garage. And again, that provides a parking ratio of 1.84 spaces per unit. So on Sandry Drive, similar to some of the changes I've described to the other two buildings, again, we've increased all of the surface parking that you can see here to be 10 feet wide and 18 feet in width with 25-foot drive aisles. This site now provides 108 total spaces. 56 of those are at the surface and 52 in the garage, for a parking ratio of 1.71 spaces per unit. In addition to some of these site plan changes that I've presented tonight, we've met with the board's peer reviewer, Apex, to go through their comment letters. I've personally met with them twice now. We have had letters go back and forth, one back from me and then another new letter from Apex received over the last week or so. And those have been very positive. I think we have probably a handful of comments to continue working through, but we're really headed in the right direction on that. And with that being said, I think I'll turn it over to Essick to give kind of an update on process.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Stephanie, and thanks, Bob. First thing, I want to echo Stephanie's comments. Apologies again for that previous meeting, the misunderstanding as far as the attendance. It was just a miscommunication, and I apologize for that. But just before we step further, again, as noted, this was our second meeting. And just to reiterate, the expectation is that we will certainly be back, ideally, if schedule is allowed, on the December 1st meeting to ideally review some of the more final comments from the Apex Civil Stormwater Review, as well as address any outstanding comments from any of the town department reviews, and any additional traffic questions that may arise. And then, again, if it fits the board's schedule, to return again on December 15th to discuss landscaping, lighting, and any other topics the board would like us to speak to. So with that, our presentation is over, so I wanted to turn back over to the board, and not sure if you were going to go with public comment or board question and answer first, or how we want to handle that.
What we're going to do now is I'm going to ask the board if they have some preliminary questions, and I'm going to turn it over to my members, okay?
Great.
And we'll see how it goes. Who would like to start off? David?
Yeah, I was going to say, these will not be all my comments, but the first round. You mentioned, and I looked at the plans about, and the transportation program talked about secure bike storage. I did not see it in the plans. I saw the revised plans that had the 10 by 18s on the outside, but still kept the 9 by 18s, but I did not see on any of the places where you're going to put bikes.
So if you, do you want to respond to these? Sorry, are you good if I respond, sir?
Yes.
Okay, great. So if you look at the plan on the top right, there's space for bikes, and there will be bicycle racks provided within the garage. And there is another location on the other side where bike racks will be located. Additionally, at the head of each parking space is approximately about a 9-foot by 3-foot space where we often find that residents, it has their ability to put a bike there, often find that residents do use that space for that. But there are bike racks included in the garage.
Okay, thank you. The next is where the water table is. This was not something you mentioned in the presentation, but in the notebooks you shared with us and the initial borings, in some cases, the water table was down just 2.5 feet, sometimes 8 feet. Our bylaws require, except for 1- and 2-family houses, at least being clear of 10 feet over the water table, meaning that may need to be a waiver or may need to have some special foundations, helical piles or something. So I'd like to hear what your thinking is on that. A third one is, there's reference in your responses to easements. It's item 71. It said you plan to get easements from neighbors after you receive your 40B. It would seem to me easements from neighbors should be prior to, the 40B. You mentioned Conservation Commission, so I'd certainly like to see where that is. You shared with us the who's paying for the 2 improvements, which is also good to hear. And a final one, again, I'm a retired architect, so that explains some of mine. The clearances in the garages, is there room for like a handicapped person's van? Is there enough clearance? Because in my experience, sometimes they had to be parked outside or something, and we do not want to preclude available parking for people who have a higher van.
So we'll work backwards. So there is enough room for clearance for a handicap van in the garage.
Okay?
And I apologize, I didn't catch the previous one about the basin.
Well, it's about water table.
Well, that was the previous one. The one right before the clearance in the garage. So the easements, I thought there was one in between. But so the easements, those are with the seller. So that's why that coordination will be happening. The easements that we are referring to will be coordinated with the seller.
Okay, do you have them yet, or you would get them?
It'd be part of the overall agreement.
Okay.
And then do you want to speak to the?
Yes, so with relation to any of the stormwater features that we're designing, I personally went out within the last month to perform additional test pits within the footprint of the proposed stormwater basins themselves. All of those BMPs are proposed to have a minimum of 4 feet of separation, which is the minimum required to meet the mass stormwater standards. I don't know the local regulation that you referred to offhand, but I certainly can investigate that and we can get back to the board.
Okay. Thank you for now.
So one question for you. If the seller is selling to the buyer, why would you need an easement?
Because they
Is the
have
seller
additional.
retaining some land?
Correct, yeah. They have more land than what we have included as part of our agreement.
All right, thank you. And are those easements referenced on the plans?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Actually, my questions are gonna be more, we're in traffic tonight, so I have quite a few on conservation and a few of the other things. On the driveway elevations going down, it requires 1%. I couldn't tell up front by the elevations on the plan. It wasn't, I guess, exact enough to me to tell. Do you have that 1%?
When you reference the 1%, do you know what portion?
Decrease from grade from the road,
The grade from the road
Yeah.
requires 1%.
yeah.
On Court Street, we are going to have what's called a concrete through apron driveway. So
Yeah.
that concrete apron would be likely between 1% and 2%. 2% is the maximum allowable cross slope.
Right.
So yes, that has been designed to meet that standard. On Prince Street, Prince Street is, the layout is a bit different than on Court. Obviously, it doesn't
Right.
intersect at a 90 degree, so the grade of Prince Street as you enter the driveway into Building 2 is at 4.5% slope, the profile of the road, entering down toward the site. And that allows us to build a sidewalk adjacent to the driveway that is less than 5%, which is the maximum allowable for ADA access.
Okay, which brings me to a couple other comments. I mean, I have a list, a long one, but it's for conservation, so we're gonna deal with that another night. Sidewalks on Sandry Drive, have we given any consideration to either the town? I realize it would have to be more monetary because it's not directly in front of your place, but has there been any consideration to doing anything with the sidewalks on Hedge?
On Sandry, we are looking to formalize that, what is currently striped there for the rail trail continuation from the parking lot across Hedge, down Hedge, and then over to the Cordage parcel. But no, we are not planning on putting in sidewalks on Hedge Road.
Okay. And you did mention the end of the street. So this, even though there's not gonna be an MOU, you're still planning to put in the signal up there, is that true?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right. I got too much.
I'm good right now.
Excuse me? You all set?
Yep.
Okay. Ed? Paulus? Any?
Yeah, I have a couple of, you've given a lot of statistics here in terms of trips, numbers, and would you share with us what is your data analytics? Where does it come from? What's the comparisons, and what's their credibility?
Yes, thank you for the question. It's a question that comes up quite often in these hearings. So the primary source, what I've published and shown on the screen is based on national surveys of similar projects.
Would you expand on that, please?
Yes.
National surveys, and I'll ask you specifically.
Yeah.
National surveys on similar projects, were your words.
That's right. So the Institute of Transportation Engineers is a group that works with municipalities, with traffic engineers, and others to develop a database for these types of projects, and they publish that database in a manual called Trip Generation. The Trip Generation provides a very deep, broad range of land use types and data sets that are used to develop trip rates, depending on the use, so that traffic engineers, transportation planners, and others can use those rates as a guideline to estimate how much traffic might be generated. For residential uses, there are subcategories of uses. There are probably about 8 categories of residential that apply: mid-rise, low-rise, single-family detached, single-family attached, et cetera. We've applied the multifamily trip rates in this case to these units as an appropriate basis to estimate trips. Now, we often are asked whether or not those industry standards, those nationally derived rates, are appropriate for local conditions, which is why even in the Board of Selectmen process that we just went through, the same question came up. And so we were able to point to specific projects in the Commonwealth that had similar unit counts and similar proximity as real-life examples of what projects like this would generate for traffic. We have sites in Braintree, for instance. We have sites in Westboro and other locations. We have many sites that we looked at. We actually presented some of this information to the Board of Selectmen. And what it shows is that the industry standards that we're using here are, if anything, slightly conservative. They're a slightly high estimate of what actually might happen based on local experience and real projects. So it is a common question that gets raised. It's an appropriate question. We want to make sure that we get this right. I've been doing this for 37 years. I don't like to be wrong. I think I've got enough experience and data on these projects to represent that what we've shown to the board are realistic numbers, and that we're also subject to peer review. So we're not making the numbers up. We're using professional standards to estimate them, but we also have the added advantage of looking at real projects and saying, you know, if you go to Jonathan's Landing in Braintree and you count the driveway for the number of units that are there, this is the number of trips that you would find, so.
Have you ever been wrong?
Ask my wife. Plenty.
No, I asked that, it's a serious question.
Yeah.
Because obviously, data and statistics, by the way, not that it's my strength, but my daughter's a PhD in data analytics.
Sure.
So some of it has rubbed off. And so I understand clearly that you're using national statistics, perhaps even, but statistics from time to time, as I say, statistics don't lie. You know the rest of the quote.
Absolutely, and, you know, I appreciate the.
And what I'm saying is I'm uncomfortable with your data.
Yeah, well, and that's precisely the reason that peer review is brought to bear, right? That's exactly why peer review, and my firm also does peer review for many municipalities throughout the Commonwealth. And I am entirely comfortable presenting the information that I just did as being a reasonable estimate of trips. You know, are the 21 trips per hour increase, could that be 22 or 3? Sure. It might also be 18, right? But in orders of magnitude, and this gets to the statistics that you had mentioned, you know, look at traffic is in some ways an art as well as a science. It depends on what the weather is from day to day and how people, you know, travel on a Monday versus a Friday versus a Wednesday, right? So it varies. It does vary. So what we presented is a snapshot of a typical representative condition. Those volumes might look different on a Monday. They might be lower. They might be slightly higher on a Friday. But on average, that's what those numbers, you know,
Thank you.
we're comfortable. Thank you.
If I may,
I have additional question, but go
Okay.
ahead. No, you go right ahead. I have
just to follow up on something that you said about the statistics and all of that, did you take into consideration that this is a tourist town? You're comparing this to other communities that aren't actually inundated with tourism at certain points. So did you take that into consideration?
We did, actually, and that was a point that was raised during the peer review. We actually took the ground counts that we did over the past year. We've increased those ground counts to reflect summer conditions when we know the volumes in and around this area are very much influenced by good weather, recreational visits to from the Cape, et cetera. We increased those volumes by 25%. Far and above what the peer reviewer suggested the adjustment should be. So we've been very conservative in estimating what volumes currently travel on these roadways. You know, we're representing a peak summertime condition. In the normal course, a traffic study is obligated to present an average condition, a typical condition, which is something that's probably more akin to what you might see in May. You know, with schools in session. We've gone above and beyond that. We've looked at the highest volume conditions that exist in this area. We base it on traffic count stations that Mass DOT has in this area that show that fluctuation. So we have accounted for that.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Welch.
No, fine. The other thing you mentioned in your presentation was that this was, I believe your words were, you were using Mass Department of Transportation, and they deemed it level B acceptable. Could you flesh that out a little bit in terms of what is level B compared to level A, compared to level C, or
Sure.
level D?
Yeah, so let's start at what the Commonwealth considers an acceptable level of typical delay at an intersection. At a signalized intersection, that level of service D would relate to about 40 seconds of delay on average, right? And if you look at lower thresholds, C, B, and A, they go by roughly about a 10-second increment, you know, so level of service C is somewhere around a 30-second.
Can you be
delay.
clearer than roughly, please, to the extent possible?
Okay, so level of service D, 40 seconds of delay. Level of service C, I believe is 30 or 35 seconds of delay. Level of service B is somewhere around 20 seconds of delay. And level of service A is typically less than 10 seconds of delay.
And are you're recommending that what you're proposing is a level B acceptable under Mass DOT? Is that
Yes,
was a
so-
comment I had of you.
Right.
Correct me if I've done,
Well, to be clear, Mass DOT publishes traffic study guidelines that are applied, you know, as an industry standard in Massachusetts. They're traffic study guidelines that cite specific performance standards, right? One of those is levels of service and acceptable delay. Level of service D or better is considered acceptable delay. That's a standard that's generally held nationally as well. So if you do work in Rhode Island or Vermont or Maine or anywhere else, the same standards apply. Level of service D is very well recognized to be a goal, if you will. The levels of service that I reported here, whether they were A, B, C, or D, really didn't change as a result of this combined traffic that would be added. But, you know, depending on where you are, if you're at the signal at Cherry and Prince Street southbound in the morning, you might see a level of service D. That won't change as a result of this project, but, you know, once that improvement is in place that I mentioned earlier, which is already designed, it's going out to bid, it's a town project, that D might become a B. You know, so in every case, there are acceptable operating standards or criteria that we're meeting at every one of these locations. We're not impacting any single location to a point where we change the amount of delay by any more than a few seconds.
All set? All set. You anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
Okay. David, anything else? Peter? Michael? Okay, and so am I. Ed? All right. At this point, unless you have something else you would like to add, I'm going to open this to public comment. But before I do, I want everybody to know that you have 3 minutes. And please, please, please try not to be repetitive. We all know, this board is very aware of the discontent that these kind of projects bring to a community. And we're part of the community too. We understand that. But we also have to live within what the state of Massachusetts says we have to do. Not even, they supersede a lot of what we have in place. And there isn't an awful lot we can do about it. And I think our attorney has made that pretty clear. But what we are going to do is let this audience, let these people know their concerns, and then maybe they can go back and iron some of these concerns out and come back with a better proposal. What I don't want to happen is for somebody to get up and start asking them questions, because we're not going to do a back and forth. All questions will be directed to the board, and then if those folks want to, at the end of public comment, talk about any of those, I'm going to allow that to happen. But I can't let a back and forth go on because it just gets way out of hand. So with that, I'm going to open it up. Who would like to start out? Yes, sir, please come to the microphone. Give us your name.
Hi, my name is Ed DiPiero, and I live at 905 Schooner Way. All of the concerns that have been raised are very valid concerns, and I feel as though the state and Governor Healy has been pushing this for a while, and I understand the need for housing. It is a concern. It's a valid concern. However, in my travels through Plymouth, I was really curious about how big is Plymouth. And when I Googled it and found out how big Plymouth was, it is 136 square miles. 136 square miles. It's the biggest town in the state of Massachusetts. So why on earth would we want to put all of these units in one of the most congested areas in Plymouth? I lived in Braintree and moved from Braintree, but I've visited Plymouth often when I was in Braintree. And if you come down Court Street in the summertime, and with all due respect with the statistics, you can't do anything after it's built when the statistics aren't valid. I drive down Court Street when I lived in Braintree, and the traffic on Court Street is horrendous in the summertime. I love Plymouth, and I'm sure all the residents of Plymouth love Plymouth. That's why we're here. But it really is beyond comprehension why you would want to stick all of these units in such a congested area when all of the people in Plymouth use that walking trail. We have kids riding bikes. We have elderly people crossing Hedge Road over to Cottage Park. It is a nightmare waiting to happen, and mark my words, I think there's going to be some accidents over there, and I pray to God that there aren't. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, can we not do applauding either, please, because it slows things down. Who would like to speak next? Yes, sir, please, come to the microphone.
Good evening, and thank you. I am here tonight to speak against...
Your name, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Robert Zuccaroli, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1.
Thank you.
I am here tonight to speak against the proposed condominium 40B project proposed by Pulte Homes. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40B and 40R and its regulations, this complex is allowed. Allowed by Mass General Law, allowed by the Commonwealth, and allowed by state housing authorities should it get there. While this may be allowed by the law, it is not something that will benefit the community. While North Plymouth is already zoned for high-density residents, the realization of this project will not add to the community of North Plymouth, but will only detract from it. The development will only add to an already stressed water and sewer system. When this issue is raised with the state will say, too bad, so sad, fix your infrastructure. When the issue of excess traffic is raised with the Commonwealth's response will be, too bad, so sad, fix your streets and highways. When the issue is raised regarding a negative impact to pedestrian traffic, specifically as it relates to the nearby Hedge School, the Commonwealth's response will be, too bad, so sad, build another crosswalk and hire a crossing guard. Notice the pattern beyond the rhetoric. None of these solutions are in fact solutions. They will only add to a complex series of problems that already face this community. Over the past several years, Plymouth has constructed more housing units than any community in Massachusetts. 1,174 of these units were constructed under the 40B and 40R legislation.
Sir?
Yes.
You're coming right up on your 3 minutes.
May I continue?
Just for about 15 seconds.
I'll do my best. So I'll jump down. If Pulte is set on purchasing and developing this land with the negative impacts that have already been articulated, work with this community and find compromise. The developer once offered local improvements to the area through an agreement through the MOU. These included Hedge Road and Court Street emergency vehicle access improvements, the North Plymouth Rail connection, Prince Street water main upgrades, Prince Street looped water main, and a Prince Street turnaround. While I understand these have been addressed, will these actually happen?
Sir, I have to cut you off now.
I understand.
I'm sorry. Yes. Yes.
Is on. May I ask, could you think you could wrap this up in another 2 minutes?
Sure.
Please,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we give
I'll
this,
give him 1 minute.
I'd like to make a motion that we give him two, I'd like to make
All
I
right,
will make
all
a
right,
motion.
okay.
That I will make a motion that we give Mr. Zuccaroli an additional 2 minutes.
Board,
Yes.
go ahead. We're going to be here for a while.
Thank you, Mr. Maine. Thank you, Mr. Wallace. As I was saying, 1,174 units have already been built in this community. This project is 163 units over 2.7 acres, which would affect wetlands, coastal wetlands, and a protected aquifer. Plymouth clearly has demonstrated the governor's goal in creating more housing. I would ask the board to not allow these permits. No one in this community wants this project to be realized. That does not only include residents from Precinct 1, that includes residents from across the town, and I have the emails and text messages to prove it. If Pulte is set on developing this property, work with the community. Use what was stipulated in the MOU. All of these are ways that Pulte can work with the community and not against it. Partner with this community, join this community. If you cannot, respectfully, go home. To the ZBA, I am asking, please deny these permits unless the above conditions are met and possibly exceeded.
Thank you.
Thank
Your
you.
time is up. Yes, please.
Hi, my name's Delia Burns. I'm sorry I'm not a natural public speaker, but we don't want you here. We don't want your project here. It's pretty clear everyone in this room is not for it. I mean, it's ridiculous. Why are we pretending like we want anything to do with this project? So just wanted to lay that out. Figured I should say what everyone's thinking, and appreciate you giving me a chance to speak.
Thank you. Someone else? Yes, the lady in the back.
Good evening to the board and to the community members here. Carol Jankowski, 7 Prince Street. I wanted to point out a couple of things. First of all, I did read the traffic study in depth twice because I could not and still don't really absorb the statistical parts of the study. However, what I did notice, and I'm going to call it a flawed study, is that it did not include the hours of 9 to 10 and 3 to 4. Very high traffic hours due to school arrivals and school dismissals. And I know this because I've walked it, I've ridden it. Very important. I couldn't believe that those hours are not included. And also, just to reiterate what you already know, this study was done in February. In February, I understand that the gentleman that was speaking about the study said that they made some kind of adjustment, but it still seems rather suspicious, actually, that a study in a little congested neighborhood, a tourist town with 2 schools within a mile, and, wait a minute, 6 churches, would be conducted in February. Might I also point out the 6 churches, I've counted them, critical that there is some study about the weekend traffic. 6 churches reduces some of our streets, Prince, and not Hedge so much, but definitely Prince, Court, and all the adjacent areas to a 1-lane road. So to me, the study is flawed right from the get-go. Never mind the statistics. I also want to point out that in a heavily pedestrian trafficked area, pedestrian traffic wasn't studied. Why not? I didn't understand that when I read it, and I still have those remaining questions. And the last thing that I'd like to point out is that the study itself says, and I'm paraphrasing here, in summary, the proposed development, on and on and on, will not result in any material changes in traffic operation in the study area. Preposterous. Add one teenage driver with one new car to your own home, and things change. It's preposterous. Last point, and I know I'm on my 3 minutes, 92 spaces, I believe, in a 50-unit building. Where are the second persons and the third persons who might be driving? Some of the units are 2-bedroom and 3. I can't remember the exact details there. Are going to have vehicles. And where will the visitors park? Please, not on Prince Street.
Thank you. Next. Way up the back, and then I'll get to you up the back after that.
Sorry, Julie Warnock, Castle Street, and just to piggyback on that wonderful presentation, she did not mention the 2 funeral homes that are within 100 yards. And having just been to a funeral multiple times in the last few months, the amount of traffic supported by that is going to be astronomical. And the amount of, you have a police funeral and there's traffic everywhere. So we have to look at that too. We can't just look at February. We have to look at every single month and all of the surrounding businesses that accompany that. It's a very important, but also we need to look at the school system, and there's a very unique and wonderful school situation that is a community that we're blessed with to have with these parents and children walking their kids to school and needing to walk them to school. Why are we taking that away from them? Why are we making it more dangerous for them to walk to school? There's much more to this than what has been studied by February. Thank you.
Thank you. Up in the back, yes, sir, please.
Good evening. My name is George Hers. I live at 17 Mustard Field. As far as sidewalks,
Yeah.
okay. As far as sidewalks go on Hedge Road, I walk that street almost every day with my dog. And let me tell you something. When there are cars coming, and there are cars coming at 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, 8:30, when they come, and there are 2 of them on each side, you got to bail out. And when you walk that street, there's 2 areas. One, 96 yards. One, 114 yards, because I walk them. I walk golf courses, so I know my yardage pretty well. And I'll tell you something. Those areas were out sidewalks. When it rains, you're walking in the muck, okay? When the water comes and settles in that area for 96 yards between Grace Trail and Court Street, it freezes. And it's like, it literally is like walking on an ice rink. And I've been on that ice where a car's coming this way and a car's coming that way. I got a dog here, and I'm like, stop, okay? Anybody who's walked that knows that, and they've experienced it. And to say you wouldn't put sidewalks there, that's just not understanding the area. Really isn't. And I suggest you go out there and walk it sometime in the morning, and you have to walk in the muck, or you have to have your head on a swivel because you don't want a car to hit you because you don't know what type of glare is coming down there in the morning. Not to put sidewalks in there is beyond me.
Thank you. Next. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dr. Walter Powell, resident at 65 Cherry Street. Just very briefly, I understand the dilemma that this board has in considering any development proposal. I sat in a chair like yours for many years in another community in Pennsylvania. But I just wanted to add to the general concern being raised by this audience. Very specifically, I would just call it in terms of the character of the neighborhood. Looking at the character of the neighborhood historically, understanding that change is necessary, but the type of change proposed here is dramatic. And I realize you're not addressing specifics here about design, height, density perhaps, but clearly in the broader picture, traffic and safety are very much tied to those issues. So I want to add my voice of concern about the density and the change of character that this project would bring to North Plymouth. Thank you.
Thank you. There was another, I think there was another fellow, yes, go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Kevin Canty. I am a member of the Plymouth Select Board and a resident of Precinct 1. I would ask that the Zoning Board of Appeals deny the application for a comprehensive permit, or in the alternative, impose adequate conditions to address the considerable burden that this project will place on town infrastructure. The Select Board is in opposition to this project and has written a letter previously to the state expressing our disdain with it, and we ask that you stand along with us in that effort as well. This project, as proposed, provides for inadequate parking for residents, let alone for guests, at fewer than 2 parking spaces per unit. As was stated previously, many people in this area need to have a car because, unlike an area like Braintree, which was used in the traffic study that has red line access and MBTA commuter bus services, this community has the GATRA, but that is a not at all comparable to what the MBTA provides for the city of Braintree. So I think using that as a comp is disingenuous, to say the least. The traffic study itself was not credited by the Select Board, and this board should not credit it either. It is not a de minimis impact. The idea that out of 100 units in the morning per hour, you'd only have 37 cars, and in the evening, 39, and then for the 63 unit, 23 in the morning and 25 is patently ridiculous. The master plan process that this community is going through demonstrates that 75% of Plymouth residents, approximately, work outside of Plymouth in order to afford to live here. So, if you're going to live in one of these expensive units, you're going to have to commute to work, most likely, statistically speaking. You're going to have to drive in order to do that. The peer review also is a desk review. It does not independently review it with separate data, and it states within it that certain assumptions are being made, which if any one of those individual assumptions were not correct, it may not be dispositive, but that in the aggregate, if more than one of those or multiple of them are incorrect, that the entire status and data set could be unreliable. So I agree with Mr. Wallace in regards to the reliability of the data. This project would impose a significant burden on water infrastructure and traffic in the area, as demonstrated. The town wanted to work with this developer at one point. The Select Board tried to work on mitigation processes, and this developer walked away from the table and said that they didn't want to work with us. And then they added more units. In addition to not wanting to do what we asked them to do, they made the project worse, not better. So that is not something that Plymouth needs. We do need affordable housing in this community, but we do not need it like this. I would ask that you deny this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, please. Yes.
Hi, my name is Ann Jones. I live at 9 Prince Street. One of the things that has stuck with me since the very first meeting that we had over at Cordage Park was the stress on our hospitals and adding all these people to this area, causing, what we already have as a, hospital that is, not, that there's a lot of people going in and out of there on a daily basis. But also living on Prince Street, we have Highcliffe. And on a daily basis, I don't have the statistics, but we have emergency vehicles traveling up and down our street 24 hours a day at numerous times of the night and during the day. And it's just constantly, going up to the high cliffs to, check on whatever emergency might be up there. We already have all those elderly housing facilities happening, elderly walking on our street. It's just really unsafe to have, not only, the infrastructure of what's happening with the buildings, but what's going to happen throughout the whole entire town. And my husband and I we sent, who was it? Denise, a video of emergency vehicles coming onto Prince Street on a Sunday while church was in session. And it was scary to have to watch that. And so she has the footage of that.
Excuse me. This is being recorded, so the only voice that really needs to be picked up is what's at the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Okay, so this is right outside of our home.
I'm Trevor from 9 Prince Street, Ann's husband, and I'm the one that I took this video. And this is the church. I'm Trevor Jones from 9 Prince Street. And this was on just a random Sunday in March where there was an emergency at the bottom of Prince Street by Court Street. That's the church parking lot right there. So church was in session. Both sides of the street had cars parked on them. 2 police cars.
You got to speak into the microphone.
2 police cars, a fire truck, and an ambulance were responding. The police cars had nowhere to go and ended up having to block the access into the apartment building at the bottom of the street. And that fire truck ended up having to do like a 20-degree turn, like to just get into the church parking lot. And behind that fire truck is an ambulance attempting, that ambulance right there attempting to come up the street, blocked behind the fire truck. And then that truck with a plow on it's trying to go down the street. And, you know, the amount of cars that you see there for church being in session on a Sunday, anybody who lives on Prince Street knows that that's nothing. It's way, that's nothing.
Can we wrap this up?
Yep, and if there's one more picture that, it might be redundant, I'm not sure, but, where is it? So, yeah, so that's the ambulance, that's the fire truck. The 2 police cars are right here. This is a truck coming down the street, you know, and the emergency was in this building right here. So, I don't know, it just add another however much traffic.
Thank you
to
very,
that.
thank
It's
you
gonna be
very
a
much.
nightmare.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Someone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? My name is Karen Edwards, and I live at 23 Prince Street at High Cliff. Okay, so what I want to tell you is I am concerned about what we call a heat island. So if those parcels are built and it's hot in the middle of the summertime and people have air conditioners in the windows or otherwise, like in High Cliff, it's actually inside the building, you have the heat coming out of the outside of the air conditioners, heating up the neighborhood as well as the pavement. And heat islands are dense. They have a lot of pavement and emissions and lack of vegetation. And the thing of it is I have asthma. And so I'm constantly concerned about my asthma. I'm constantly concerned about walking safely on a sidewalk to 7-Eleven and back. Let's see, let me just check real quick about. I'm concerned about on the side of the road on Prince Street, on the left, the decline that they're talking about with the new road going down. I mean, it's all sandy soil. You're going to end up having rainwater problems and everything, I believe. It's going to be too much. Wait a minute. Sorry about that. I'm not good at this. So that question about the water table being 10 feet or not, I think that really has to be looked into because I am concerned about the water down there and rainwater. Oh, sorry. Floodplain. Right around the area, the floodplain is zone AE with an elevation of 11 feet. And although it's not actually that particular piece of property, all around that property is floodplain zone AE at 11 feet. Okay, that's it. Sorry about that. Thanks.
Thank you. Someone else? Yes, sir, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Andrami. I live on Atlantic Avenue in North Plymouth. And I was a little bit, I don't know, flabbergasted about the traffic study, too, myself. Because with less than 2 parking spaces per car, I don't think they have enough cars planned here, in the study, that is. Because if you drive anywhere in Plymouth, there's 3 cars in front of every house. I mean, there's going to be 3 cars for every building unit. So there's more cars than they, I think, have in their study. And I don't know, but that's a question I would like the board to address. Also, right now, 50% of the time, it's not a solid statistic. It takes me more than 30 seconds to come out of Atlantic Street or out of Robbins Road and make a left and go down Court Street. So that's just normal traffic. And I'm not driving because I'm retired. I'm not driving during business hours or commuting hours. I also was driving on 3A Sunday morning, heading south, and I was stopped in front of St. Mary's Church for over a minute because of the people coming out of the church and trying to get across 3A. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are not in that study that I think that they're realistic in Plymouth, in North Plymouth, because it is a very dense neighborhood. And I don't live on Prince Street, and I'm glad I live on Atlantic Avenue right now, but all of our streets are very narrow. And if you saw in the pictures, cars parked on every side of the street only allows for 1 car to go down the street. And you have to sort of duck in and let another car go by, then you duck in. That's probably not in the study, you know, flowing cars. And then we have it on Atlantic Street. When the fire truck comes down, he has, or we should say, the truck has trouble getting down the street because of cars parked on every side. So I don't get this car study. And I gotta believe there's gotta be 2 cars per unit there in these new building units. And Christ, where are all the cars gonna go? And I'd also be curious for a question for the study is the statistics that they brought up, the number of cars moving. When was that done? If it's done in the last 5 years, people have been working from home. That's all changed in the next, is it going to change again in the next 5 years? More and more companies are making the people come to their office. So if the statistics were brought up between 2020 and 2024, a lot of people, 50 to 60% of the workforce is working from home. And that's all changing it. So I'd like to see more of the study, more dug into the study to see what the heck's going on, what the real numbers are. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else? Yes, no. Yes.
Hi, my name is Chris Benish. I live at 902 Schooner Way. I just had a quick question about the study. There were a number of factors in the study that were mentioned. One of them was the type of buildings or structures. I heard the word low-rise. I also heard the word multi-dwelling unit or multi-unit dwelling. The study, I think, was based on a multi-dwelling unit or multi-unit dwelling. Why isn't it classified as a low-rise? That's it.
Someone else? Yes. Yes. I will, I'll get to it.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Deb Iaquinto, and I'm also a member of the Plymouth Select Board. And I, too, proudly signed the letter that the board sent to the state opposing this project. Unfortunately, the state didn't agree with us, but that doesn't mean our opposition stops here. We're going to keep on fighting this. So back in the spring, I joined the site visit with the developer and some representatives from the state. And I was honestly stunned by the scale of the project. And I'm going to preface this by saying Plymouth desperately needs affordable housing. I don't think anyone's going to deny that. But we need housing that's going to complement our neighborhood. And what I saw that day, or what I heard that day, this project does neither one of those things. And I was even more stunned when the developer described it as an asset to the town. Well, the town certainly doesn't see it that way. I don't see any asset or any benefit to the town based on this project. I've even read through all of the documents submitted with the 40B application, hundreds and hundreds of pages, and I have serious concerns about public safety, as we've been talking about tonight, but also about the health of the people living nearby and about the environment, the impact on the environment. We'll get to the environmental impacts, I know, in another meeting, but parts of this property include wetlands, and some of it sits in a flood zone. We don't know how that's going to be mitigated. But tonight's hearing is focused on traffic safety, and we've talked about both vehicle and pedestrian safety, and I don't think there are enough adjectives to describe our responses to Pulte's traffic study impact analysis. I do like Carol's preposterous and Kevin's ridiculous, so I'll just go with those for now. But what I saw in the peer review of Pulte's study, which was basically a desk review, they didn't do an independent study or even visit the site. But even without that, they did question the data and the methods that Pulte used to measure the existing traffic and crash conditions. And they also noted that Pulte looked at each development on its own instead of the combined impact, and that no pedestrian analysis was done, which is really concerning. And I know that we've talked about that a lot today. So the peer review, Pulte did not mention this, but it does recommend updating the traffic and safety analysis based on more current and accurate data. And I strongly urge the board to make sure that that happens. And better yet, I would really love to see us do our own independent study, traffic study, and not rely on Pulte's data.
Thank you, please. There was, yes, the fellow way back, and then I'll work my, someone get up, please, and go to the microphone. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Lisa Fosdick. I live at 20 Holmes Terrace. And part of the traffic study that I didn't hear taking into consideration was the additional units to be built at Cordage. So those will also affect the traffic and the pattern in through that area. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about that as we're reviewing this traffic study. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There was another, yes, sir. I don't know, I saw a hand go up. Yeah, go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Martell, 27 Holmes Terrace. Many excellent issues brought up tonight, but I have two questions or observations about the parking. My first question is the tandem lots. Are those assigned to one unit, or are people going to get blocked in, and are they going to be unusable? The second is about the handicap access. I have a granddaughter who's handicapped. I don't see her being able to open the door in a 9-foot wide parking space. Those would be my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, at the back of the room.
I want to thank you for your time, and I know this is a very difficult topic.
Speak into the microphone, please.
All right, but you're going to regret that at some point. I do want to thank you for dealing with a very difficult topic. My name is Samantha Tracy. I live at 8 Prince Street, so that traffic issue is my every Sunday, Saturday night, Friday night, and oftentimes just whenever. And I'm concerned about the traffic study in that I think it's a little self-serving. we're talking about putting 3 buildings in, a very short period of space. Prince Street is a dead end. They're going to have to park on Prince Street. If you try to have traffic enter Prince Street while it attempts to exit Prince Street, that's just not going to work. There isn't enough space if anybody is parked anywhere. It creates a hazardous situation. I've watched pedestrians dodge cars as they've tried to cross the street. Again, I think that when they did the traffic study, they didn't take into account all 3 buildings and the impact it's going to have as vehicles exit Hedge Street onto Court Street and as vehicles try to cross Cherry Prince going into the center of North Plymouth. And I'm sorry, February, nobody drives if they can, but like where I work, people are being forced back into the office. So these people are going to have to commute. We don't have a commuter rail, right? It's not entering Plymouth Station. So they're going to need cars, and they're going to be parking in front of my house. As it is, I can't actually exit on Sunday morning because I can't see. I rework my day around the church, and that's just me, and I know it's the same for the rest of the residents. Right,
Please,
you don't,
please.
Right, you just don't leave. I would like, as a taxpayer who is going to have to suffer and probably pay for the infrastructure changes, because there's not going to be water or sewer prepared for these people. They're going to use the existing sewer and water. So while my street is dug up and Hedge Street is dug up and I'm wildly inconvenienced for the foreseeable future, I would like you to take the time to get a separate traffic study, because quite honestly, it was self-serving, short-sighted. It doesn't account for what's going to happen when buses start to go down this street to pick up kids for school and drop them back off. It doesn't account for the emergency services that at least 2 to 3 times a week go up to Cliff Hill in order to service some senior citizens. That doesn't account for the back door of the other senior citizens living community that also exits Prince Street instead of Castle. I really would like you guys to take my interest and the interest of everybody in this room into consideration when you accept that traffic study. That's not to mention all of the other issues with this, including building some of the tallest buildings in North Plymouth in my backyard. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Someone else? Yes, up at the back with your hand up.
Thank you. My name's Beth Gregg. I saw on one of the slides that there's a tentative meeting scheduled for drain water. I think it was civil/drain water. I don't want that falling off of the schedule for the future, because I think that given that one of the drain water, I'm not sure what it's called, has been eliminated from one of the projects, and given the sensitivity of this environment and the coastal environment and the aquifer, I don't want that to fall off the map. So I would strongly urge that you do have that meeting to discuss that issue.
Look at me, ma'am. I promise you that that will be addressed.
Okay, you're on the record.
That's it.
Thanks.
Now, there was a fellow, you, with the hat, yes. I'm sorry, I missed you about 3 times.
We're looking at.
Hi, I'm Dennis Farrell. I grew up on Prince Street, and I think it was very helpful to have the pictures to demonstrate, what's going on now and what'll be happening. It's going to be a bottleneck right there. But, a lot of the people have gotten up and spoke about Prince Street. And hardly anybody said about the other 2 entrances onto Court Street. And to me, you have one of them coming out behind where St. Mary's Parish is now. How are they going to take a left out of there? You got CVS coming out the other side. To me, it doesn't make any sense. And then you go to Hedge Road. Well, I know a lot of people will get smart, and when they come out of Hedge Road, they'll take a right and quick left and go up by the old fire station. Now they're going to take a left to bypass downtown North Plymouth, and then now they're going to go into the school traffic. And there's also was very little on the study about the school. And if it's true that someone brought up about they disregarded the hours of, 9 to 10 and 3 to 4 on that study, that's pretty pathetic. And the only other thing I wanted to say was they estimated, a certain amount of cars going through on, per hour out of Prince Street and the other streets also. Was that based on 24 hours? In other words, was that an average for 24 hours, 12 hours? I don't know what it was. So that would be my question for Pulte for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else? Yes.
Hi, I'm David Drocic. I live at 14 Prince, and I think the statistic that most jumped out from the traffic report was that in 7 years, the outlook is the same whether or not the 163 units are going to be built there or not, and I just wanted that to be a point. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board for now, but I am not going to close public comment. So when you come, if you, and believe me, we want you to come back. We want everybody in this community to know what's going on and see what's going on. So please, don't think that you're not going to be able to speak again, because I am not going to close public comment. But for now, I'm going to bring it back to the board for board discussion. Is there, yes, Ed, please.
Attorney Murray, can I ask you a question? We've heard tonight that a lot of the neighbors, the selectmen, we've talked about the deficits of the trip generation, saying that it's going to only be exiting in the morning 28 cars leaving for 100 people, and the issues with the traffic study and public safety. Say, and the request to have this petition denied. So say this is denied. We all, 5 of us say, yep, there's the traffic study was inadequate. There's problems with the trip generation. The problems with the 7 years. There's an issue with the 7 years. And we go up to the Housing Appeals Committee. That's where this will get appealed to. In your experience, has any of these have a chance of even of having standing, or like, is there a chance of any of this working at all?
Thank you, Mr. Conroy. As you probably know from some of our past projects and discussions that we've had over the years about 40B projects, towns traditionally do not fare well at the Housing Appeals Committee. And the vast majority of cases that do get appealed there are often overturned. That isn't to say towns never win, but they rarely win.
So to reiterate, all that we've said tonight, with all that you've said, as long as you folks understand, we have a very slim chance, sure, we can deny this, but it's a 40B project. And are we just wasting our time? Yes, we can do it. Yeah, we can do it, but I want you to understand, we've just heard from the attorney saying that most of these will get, even if we deny these. So slim chance, and so you look at the case law. I'm a lawyer. You look at the case law. I understand which ones, I've read which ones have been denied. Suggest you two, you guys go look at it yourselves. And just so we have extremely, extremely uphill battle. Will be very expensive, and I think we should do that battle. But I want everyone to know the expectations of what we face. Thank you for your response, Attorney Murray.
Yeah, but before we go any further, I want the proponent to weigh in on anything that he's heard this evening, that he would like to answer any of these questions, have any statements to make, but please, if you feel that you would like to, go right ahead. Okay, all right. Yes, David, please.
As a retired architect and planner, I've studied the plans, looked at land use and where you're proposing the buildings. A question to Pulte is, why didn't you put Building 2 where the warehouses are off of Hedge and not off of Prince? To my mind, half or more of the concerns we heard today are based on the access off of Prince. I am not convinced that Building 2 needs to be accessed off of Prince, especially when there's available property from this seller that is being retained for some mystery reason by him as opposed to a better location for Building 2. So I guess at the very least, I would say revisit where Building 2 is located and not keep the access off of Prince. It just does not work in my mind. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Anybody else?
For right now, not, but when I have quite a few issues that I want to address when he comes back, you want me to set up for the next meeting or? Okay.
Sure. Let them know what they have to come
Yeah.
and face.
Well, is my original statement originally on the MOU, well, that's obvious, that's not gonna probably go anywhere. But what I do want is, something that we'd be able to condition for money for infrastructure. I know on all projects is, because I used to be in the business myself, there is a percentage that you do spend for infrastructure and can give. So I'd like to have something that I'd like to have something we can condition that addresses that, so we know from each one, and I would like both of them separated. Then, towards the end, farther on, we got to discuss the waivers that you're going to require. And I think there's a couple additional ones after I've read all the peer reviews that you might, going to have to add.
The floodplain bothers me.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. One of my other things, we have a conservation discussion. I heard that they, how their meeting went the other night, but there is quite a bit. I mean, as I said, the first meeting was on the flood zone, and a couple of the comments we'll address at one of the other meetings for, the drainage, so on and so forth. And then again, at the end, I'd like to review the HOAs, at some point. For now.
Okay.
So just to touch on that, excuse me, really quickly. So in addition to the stormwater analysis and that's been done as part of the peer review, the sewer water infrastructure was, the design engineering was part of that. And so that will be an additional piece of that. We're assuming for the next meeting that we sit with the board, would be to discuss that infrastructure.
Right.
Does that satisfy you, David? Okay. I'm going to say this. You folks have been here, and we appreciate the turnout. You've heard from a couple of selectmen tonight. You know that this is a project that is of great concern to everybody in this room. We don't take it lightly, and I want all of you, if you can make it, to come back. I want you to understand that these folks are coming out in weather that's can be nasty. They're out tonight in nasty weather, so they're very serious too. So really, really try and sharpen your pencil and do some work here, please.
Understood, Chair. I just wanted to make one other note regarding the conservation discussion. We were set to attend the Conservation Commission for reasons outside of our control. That was continued, but we are happy to have our expert who is going to present to the Conservation Commission come here and present to the ZBA and anybody else that would like to, so we can talk about the floodplain and the wetlands if the board so pleases.
Yeah, I would.
All right.
So we can ask them to attend the next meeting to give a brief summary of what would have been our presentation to the
Yeah.
Conservation Commission.
Yes, I would.
We'd be happy to do that.
Because basically, this board takes their place.
I completely understand, and we would like for them to have that opportunity to present.
And I'm going to mention one other thing. 9-foot parking places, I don't care where they're located, are not gonna make it by me. Now, that the rest of the board can do whatever they want, but I am not at all in favor of 9-foot parking places. And you heard from one person who was handicapped. And I had a handicapped person, taking care of a handicapped person for a long time. Wheelchairs are hard to get maneuver in and out, even in a 10-foot parking place. So keep that in mind, please. You may have to reduce the density in order to get the parking. And if that's the way it is, that's the way it is.
One thing. The other thing, too, is on the end of Prince Street, when you redesign the entrance, I didn't get that plan in mine, or I didn't see it in there.
No, I didn't either.
Right, so I'd like to have electronic copy sent to us.
We can send it again. It was part of the package that was submitted. So
I know there was a couple updates, so who knows, you know?
Yeah, no,
But
we're happy to
I
send.
didn't see it.
We're happy to send it again, but that plan is part of the package.
Yeah.
I'll just point out, there already were 850 pages.
Well, more than that. Geez, each one of them's 800.
Right, so.
I mean, we've got probably
Yeah, and-
2,000.
Ladies and gentlemen, you don't understand the volume of information that we have to go through. 850 pages on one document, and then we got another one with, what, 50, 60
Well,
pages?
we got 3 that have 800 and
Yeah.
something,
So-
and
and-
they call them comprehensive permits for a reason, you know?
Somebody out here said they read the entire traffic report 3 times. So have I. And it is, yes. Anyway, he wants to ask a question.
So the engineer referenced that there's been another report or responses to the Apex. I have the 2 Apex reports dated November 6th. Are there subsequent materials from Apex?
Yeah, the November 6th reports are their response to our response. Their initial report, their initial peer review, excuse me, was, I don't remember the date, mid-October? would
Actually,
be
there's
my-
nothing subsequent to November 6th.
Correct,
All right,
correct.
thank you, that's all I needed to know.
Yep,
Thank you.
sorry.
All right.
Gentlemen, anything else? Have you anything else you would like to add?
That's all I have tonight. I just request a continuance to the next meeting.
Absolutely. Denise, what would that date be, please?
December 1st, if town council is available? Yes.
Okay, we make a motion?
I'll make the motion to continue cases 4183 and 4184 to December 1st at 6 PM.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? It is unanimous that this board will reconvene on December 1st at 6, was it the 1st? Yes, at 6 PM. I invite all of you to please, if you can make it, come back, because there's going to be some serious information discussed that night. And you heard 2 selectmen and all of us talk about how concerned we are about this petition. And we want you to be, I don't think anybody's going to be satisfied, but we want you to at least understand what the town has in front of them, what their capabilities are, what their possibilities are, and probably what the outcome is going to be. We're going to try our hardest. That's all I can say. So with that, I am going to ask for a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, folks, for
Thank you.
coming.